Alright, I ended up removing the other video I did just because a lot of what I was talking about ended up not happening. That was kind of like a prediction video before 0.4 dropped, and it just kind of felt like misinformation to keep it up, so I just nuked it. I've tried out a couple of the builds that I mentioned in it, and things just aren't really working the way that I would like them to. On top of that, just not really, I don't know, I think I'm just kind of tired of the passive tree not really doing much, and it's just kind of wearing on me. Now, obviously what I'm about to show is not optimized at all. Like, you can literally see, like, I don't even have a single jewel socketed in what I'm doing. Just kind of just been working on it, separately. I'm doing the video now because, to be frank, I'm just not feeling it. So I thought I would just kind of catalog where it's at and how things are going. So what I'm doing in this build is prioritizing Elemental Sundering. Elemental Sundering does a lot of damage if you can do it on something that's frozen. Does it actually tell me? Yeah. So I'm getting a bunch of skill levels because I'm using a Sun Splinter, so all of these additional levels count toward Elemental Sundering. I also just threw this in here because why not? This isn't the optimal choice, as well as I would say this is probably not the optimal choice, but it's just what I'm using for the time being. The problem is, even with all of these additional levels, I kind of feel like, it scales on levels, but it's not really the best avenue to scale this thing. Part of me wonders if I just did a Chernobog's and did Embitter with that, if that would just be better overall. But I don't know if I'm even going to bother dealing with it, just because I'd have to then, figure out how to get a bunch of strength into the build and whatever. So yeah, so the premise of the build, free stuff, use Elemental Sundering. What I would have liked to do instead was use the helmet, I think it's Radiant Grief, that says it just ignites everything. The problem is, once they introduced flammability into the game, that helmet no longer ignites everything. It just adds flammability magnitude, and then, eventually something will get ignited. But, if you want to just be able to run around constantly igniting everything, and then, spamming Elemental Sundering basically as like your clearing and your bossing, that's not going to work that way. You could probably do it with Ignited Ground if you were going to use a skill that does Ignited Ground, like say Explosive Spear. The problem is, there's those boots that do Ignited Ground too. The problem with that is Elemental Sundering is a melee ability. And so again, this does kind of lead me back to perhaps scaling levels with this thing is just not the right choice. But it's a melee ability, and it feels like you want melee levels. But yeah, in any event, if I had a spear that had attack levels or attack skills instead of melee skills, I would change this build up significantly. I probably wouldn't use Fangs of Frost. I would do literally any projectile, and the build would feel a lot better, no doubt. But that's not what I did. So in any event, outside of that, the only other things, Elemental Conflux, again, this actually, again, scales with everything that we're doing on Sun Splinter. I haven't even qualityed the thing, but I would get even more damage if I did. Again, random 60% more. When that hits cold, that's great. My spear has a little bit of lightning, so if it hits lightning, sure, whatever, that's fine. But that's pretty much the build. I guess my main complaint with Elemental Sundering, I have two. You'll see when I use it, there's using it, and then there's it actually doing the damage. And those are two different things. I think they scale both with skill speed and attack speed. I don't know if they scale with cast speed at all. I'm just kind of curious about that for the second bit. But you'll see what I mean. There's going to be a delay when I use the thing. I think even though this skill, you know, says it does a shitload of damage, I think part of the problem with it is that it really just doesn't feel like it's doing a shitload of damage. Unless, in my setup, unless it crits. And even then, I still feel like it's not doing the damage that it kind of should be doing. And I think the problem with that is it doesn't have an attack damage scaling at the top that then, you know, gets double scaled. So like this is kind of like a single scale based purely on, you know, your weapon. And I think even if like this, even if it had a tag that was like does 120 or something of base, and then it had the additional scaling, I think this would feel a lot better. But right now it's like you need to deal with this attack speed because it takes a fucking year. And then on top of that, you know, it does damage, but it's just not doing the damage that I kind of expect it to do. And you'll see what I mean. So let's just do this boss, see how it goes. It's this guy, so I'm probably just going to get destroyed by something that I don't even see, but that's fine. Alright, freeze it, do this. So like it works, but again, it's dependent on the crit. And that's just not, like, obviously if you're doing a crit build, you're dependent on crits, but let me try to do an example real quick where I don't crit. And again, I'm not even doing tier 15 maps here, like that was maybe a 13 or something. I don't care. Let me just throw this map in again. I just don't, it doesn't matter. As long as I don't get absolutely murked by whatever's going on here, probably be fine. So let's hit some of these, freeze people, blow things up. This will just be, I guess, the mapping showcase. Does it show me where the boss is yet? I don't. Blow these guys up. Oh. Do one of these. Like, you can see, sometimes I'll hit a rare mob, and it's still alive, but not only is it like still alive, it still has like 70% of its health, which is just nuts for something that's doing 370% damage, which is what makes me feel like, you know, because it doesn't have that like top level attack damage scale tag, it's just not like, again, it's just not doing like the amount of damage that you would expect it to do, even though, you know, it's doing 3,000% damage right now. It's my hunch anyway. Let's just try to do this. Good. We got this guy too. That one was nice. I did recently put my spec to use the exposure or whatever. Let me just wait on my energy shield. Alright, I'll probably just fucking die here, but that's fine. There we go. Yeah, I changed it to do this instead. So this is definitely helping. Like, I'm feeling this for sure. This, I initially had a spear that had accuracy rating, so I did this, but this is doing way more for the build than just having like more top end damage. Yeah, you can see like it's, if I don't crit, it like hits like a wet potato. Like I don't even know what the fuck it's doing if it doesn't crit, which is insane because it still has 3,000% scaling. You know, it's what it fucking says, but it sure doesn't feel like it does. It's just not it. Like fighting that thing, you know, I had the additional, like the 50% more because of the whatever it is, but you know, my fucking basic attack felt like it did more damage than the fucking 3,000% scale of the Elemental Sundering on it. Like it just doesn't very frustrating. I'll fucking deal with that shit later. Where the hell's the boss? There are some other things that I could do to make clearing with this build better. Like, obviously I'm using a spear filled, it's not even, doesn't even have 5 sockets in it right now. Doesn't even have 4 right now. If I did, what is it, the ancestral one with, to basically make my strikes hit, like, spawn 3 times, the ancestral call or whatever. That would help out with Fangs of Frost. That would help to clear. Because part of the problem with using spear skills, if you're not using Whirling Slash, you're just not... if you're not using Whirling Slash, you're kind of just not doing AoE. And, you know, it's great that this thing strikes in a line, but it's very rare that stuff is actually lined up. Like, you kind of need it to be a circle. Which is just not good. It's very unfortunate, but it just kind of is what it is. Okay, here's the boss. Let's see if we can do... We'll see. If this crits, then obviously, like, you know, video isn't going to super accentuate the problem that I'm having. But if it doesn't crit, you'll be able to very plainly see, like, this thing is not doing the damage that it should be doing. Just kill this guy real quick. Evade that. Yeah. That was a, what was it, like a 360 because it already had the 80. 360%. Wasn't even looking at the screen. 360% damage, or 360,000 damage on an ability that has fucking additional 15 levels on it. You know, granted it's only level 17 right now, but an additional 15 levels on it. You know, it's supposed to be doing 3,000% of my weapon or whatever, but it's just not worth it. It's not fucking doing anything. Let's get those guys out of here. Alright, let's try this again. This time we'll see if we get a crit. Nope, we don't. And it still doesn't fucking hit for anything. Alright, so now we'll just actually pay attention and dodge the single attack that can hurt us. Yeah, so I don't know. I've been rambling, but that's kind of like where I am with this. I really wanted to check out Elemental Sundering because I really hadn't seen anything with it. But now I kind of understand why. Like, it's just not, just doesn't do anything, really. Like, I'm pretty sure I could hit with like any other skill and do the same amount of damage, if not more. Especially with how pumped it is. It also, this is like the only Nova support skill in the game right now, and this thing is a Nova. So like, again, if I was using attack skills or projectiles even and scaling that way, like I could just use this thing as a projectile as well, basically, and it's just going to perform way better. So I don't know. It's just not it. It will be better if it just had an additional scaling tag, I think, right here. But even still, like, it's, I don't know, it's not it. Like, my explosive spears does the same amount of damage from last patch than this, and it doesn't have anywhere near the scaling. Like, it's just not, it's not it. Yeah. I don't know, that's all I got.